On the ballot in Genesee County, a marijuana proposal specifically in Montrose. Voters will decide whether or not to legalize the possession or the transfer of less than an ounce of marijuana. And NBC 25's Ilse Lujan Hayes joins us live with Montrose with the story. Good morning, Ilse.
Good morning, Joel. Well, right now in Michigan, they ban the use and possession of marijuana unless it's medical marijuana. Now, you may remember back in November, 6 Michigan communities passed marijuana decriminalization measures, which is the term that is used. That included Port Huron, Mount Pleasant, and Saginaw. Now, 5 others rejected similar proposals. Today, Montrose voters will decide which group they will join. The big question many are asking, does legalizing marijuana in this manner put the communities in potential conflict with the state law? Well, that's one of the questions we will be looking at this morning. Also coming up this morning, around 5:30, hear from a marijuana advocate who played a role in the push to have the proposal placed on the ballot here in Montrose. Then during our 6 o'clock news hour, hear from an author who is a marijuana legalization opponent. So be sure to stick around. We're going to be covering this very, very controversial proposal coming up. For now, live in Montrose, Ilse Lujan Hayes, NBC 25. Good morning, Joe. Well, there are already 6 communities that have passed marijuana initiatives. My next guest is hoping Montrose joins them. Now, Eric Gunnels is a marijuana advocate. Good morning. He joins us right now. Now, Eric, I actually met you back in 2011. You had, you attempted to run a medical marijuana business, but you're now a Thetford Township trustee. What is your connection to Montrose?
Well, I just came to Montrose because I wanted to see this election day possible. I know that the organizations that have put this forth and the community individuals that have helped to create this possible in Montrose, and I'm just here to see the will of the voters be heard today. So
let's talk about the wording. I mean, what exactly does this mean? We talk about marijuana only on private property, and then they use the word transferring. What exactly does that mean?
Well, simply like alcohol, if you were you're on private property and you were sharing drinks with some friends, we wouldn't want people or adults, responsible adults, to be arrested for simple possession and use on their private property.
Now, currently, Michigan bans the use and possession of marijuana. But if this passes, let's talk about it. If I'm in a home and I have less than an ounce of marijuana, the local police will not. They shouldn't bother me, but state police can.
State police can still cite you under state law. But law enforcement should respect the will of the voters. I think that for the most part, law enforcement will respect that and leave people alone in their own homes.
All right, Eric, you're going to be sticking around, and we're going to continue to show and talk about both views. Coming up a little later, hear from a former drug policy advisor to several presidential administrations. You're going to hear from him, and we'll get response from Eric. For now, live in Montrose, Ilse Lujan Hayes, NBC 25.
Now, one of the big stories we're following this morning is in Genesee County. A marijuana proposal on the ballot in Montrose could mean possessing and transferring less than 1 ounce of marijuana that would make it legal.
And that's where NBC 25's Ilse Lujan Hayes joins us from this morning in Montrose. Good morning, Ilse.
Good morning, Joel. This morning we are talking about both sides of the marijuana initiative here in Montrose. Now, joining me once again is Eric Gunnels. He is a former medical marijuana dispensary owner, and you are also a marijuana advocate and currently the Thetford Township trustee. Thank you for being with us. Now, before we get to our interview, I'm going to have you respond to a statement made by a marijuana opponent. So let's take a look at some video right now. Kevin Sabet is a former drug policy advisor in several presidential administrations. Now, the author of Reefer Sanity, 7 Great Myths of Marijuana. He hosted a town hall meeting in Midland back in November. Sabet says legalizing marijuana comes with a high cost that we're going to pay. Now, take a listen at a soundbite. This is for our viewers, and then we're going to have Eric respond. Take a listen.
Today's marijuana is not your Woodstock weed of the 1960s. It's 10 to 20 times stronger. What Michigan should do is look at the mistakes in Colorado and see what the negative impacts have been there before they go down the same path.
Of course, Colorado just celebrated their 1-year anniversary of legalizing marijuana in the entire state. Now, Eric, go ahead and respond to folks at that soundbite they just heard.
Well, the alcohol comes in different strengths as well. And when you're talking about the strength of marijuana, really it has more to do with the fact that, well, I'd like to point out that marijuana is a very non-toxic substance, so you really can't overdose on it. And no one's ever died from it, so it is safer than alcohol.
Now, of course, we want to reiterate that's your opinion, of course. Now, is this part of a bigger effort? Well, we don't have time for that question. We're going to have to do this during the next segment, but thank you, Eric. So please stick around. We're going to have much more from Montrose. Ilse Lujan Hayes, NBC 25. Good morning, Joel. We're about 30 minutes away from the only voting poll here in Montrose to open its doors to voters. And of course, on the ballot today, this very controversial issue, which is the marijuana. Now, joining us right now is Eric Gunnels, who is a marijuana advocate. Eric, let's talk about the money. You say that I asked you earlier if this is a bigger effort to legalize marijuana across the state by hitting cities and townships.
I certainly hope so, and I certainly hope that it is a bigger effort across the country. I'd like to see the tax revenue really collected from this. I think that Colorado did a great effort of that. They collected $44 million in tax revenue, the last figure I heard, and I think that Michigan could use that tax revenue. Now,
something we should mention, since we're talking, you mentioned Colorado, and I did do some research, and it does show, their data shows that about 2,300 arrests were made in 2014 for marijuana possession. Versus 30,000 arrests a few years earlier. You're saying this is a perfect example of what?
I think it's a perfect example of redirecting law enforcement resources. I think that we could better use those resources to, pursue other crimes instead of, victimless crimes in people's homes.
All right, let's quickly go to a full screen that we have for you. Governor Rick Snyder shared this statement. I want viewers at home to take a look. The language, he says, is inaccurate because it does not inform the voters that the proposed amendment conflicts with the state law or that state law will control regardless of whether the proposed amendment is adopted. Now, Snyder is talking about Saginaw there, but very similar here. A lot of folks feel like even if this passes, it's still state law to not have marijuana in your home. So how do you handle that?
Well, it may be, but I think the main effort here is to also show our lawmakers at the state level that Michigan's ready to see this kind of change. I think that the voters certainly have spoken in countless other cities across the state of Michigan. We've certainly seen other ballot initiatives pass. I hope this one does too, and I look forward to it.
All right, Eric, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. And of course, NBC 25 will continue to follow this very big story here in Montrose. Live in Montrose, Ilse Lujan Hayes, NBC 25.
All right, Ilse, thank you. Ilse live for us this morning in Montrose.